If you're using Sony cameras and you're intimidated by either S-Log3 or S-Log2, then I've got a pretty solid alternative that's going to help you out. When we're talking about Sony cameras, S-Log is the raw footage that your camera collects, and it's used by professionals all over the world to deliver the best footage possible, but it does have a few intimidating steps required to get the most professional and the best out of the footage. So when we're at that stage in learning about color grading, it can be a pretty big step to take all at once. And if you're anything like me, you're probably focusing on other things like frame rate, focusing, composition, and all of the other wonderful things that we get to learn as part of our filmmaking journey. So while I would recommend getting away from the base color profile of Sony cameras, i.e. no picture profile at all, I did find a way to break down that step from 0 to 100, 100 being S-Log, with this little one in the middle. The picture profile that we're talking about offers a slightly flatter profile than your standard color, offering a more cinematic feel to it straight out of the box. However, you can get away with using this profile on its own with minimal or no adjustments at all. It looks great coming out of camera, and using this on its own with no further adjustments makes your footage look infinitely more professional than not using profiles at all. On this camera right here, the Sony a7 IV, it is picture profile 5 and picture profile 6 that we're going to be looking at. But if it's different on any other cameras, I'm not entirely sure because I haven't tested them all. What we're looking for are profiles called Cine 1 and Cine 2. And if you've got no idea what a picture profile is or where to find one, a picture profile just basically adds a style to your footage that is not the normal flat profile that comes out of your camera when they're not in use. There are a variety to choose from. There are 11 on the Sony a7 IV, but for today's video, we're going to focus on picture profile 5 and 6. And to find them, you're going to go into your Sony menu and scroll down to exposure and color, the little pink box, the third from the top, and it is number 6 in color and tone. And if you go over again, you'll be able to find picture profile. I would recommend making a quick access menu. And if you're not sure how to do that, I'll link the video here and you can check that out once you've watched this video, of course. And if you've never used picture profile before, you will find that it is set to off. You want to scroll down to PP5 on the left hand side here and press the right side of the wheel on the back of your camera, and you'll be able to see there in PP5 that gamma is set to Cine 1, and that is what we're looking for. You press menu to come back out, go to PP6 and check that out as well. Again, gamma is Cine 2, so that's ideal, that's what we're looking for. And just so you can see it in action here, I have the same scenario filmed 3 times, each with a different color profile, starting off with no color profile at all, just the base tone and color coming out of the camera. As you can see, very punchy, very contrasty, and not a lot to work with in terms of post-processing. Second up, we have got our Cine 1 profile. You can see that it looks a lot better coming out of the camera than our base profile, and it gives us a little bit of wiggle room. Although in the past, I haven't had to do too many adjustments, maybe just a little bit of contrast and some stylistic additions to suit my purpose and my style. And finally, the flat profile of S-Log3, as you can see, is absolutely miles away from the Cine profile, completely flat. And then we add a grade to it. Of course, it's going to look the best. But in terms of delivering a final professional product without that massive learning curve, I think the Cine profiles have a lot going for them. While using S-Log3 effectively and being able to color grade it might be our final goal or our destination as far as our filmmaking journey, there are a lot of positives to be said about using the Cine profile as a bridge between not color grading or using a profile at all and eventually getting to that final S-Log3. One of the first things that I draw your attention to is that it has a lower base ISO. When you switch into S-Log3 on this camera right here, which is a Sony a7S III, it has a base ISO of 640. So I have to compensate usually with an ND filter if I'm outside so that I don't overexpose, blowing out the highlights while also trying to stylistically overexpose so that I can color grade later. Kind of complicated if you've never tried it before, right? Secondly, when you get that footage into the editing suite, you can see on the S-Log example that there's a lot to do in terms of bringing that footage to life and making it look like a professional finished piece. When you're using the Cine profile, however, you could pretty much get away with just loading it up, doing a few tweaks and sending it out. It looks great. It's got a flat enough cinematic looking profile that you don't need to spend hours and hours fine tuning it. Now, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that you get exactly the same output with a Cine profile as you could with an S-Log profile. What I am going to say is that instead of taking that massive leap if you're not ready to use S-Log as a grading base, then Cine 1 is a great alternative for dipping your toes in the water. And that's the whole purpose of this video, is to give you something to think about if you're not quite ready to make the leap. So all in all, I hope this video has given you a little nudge in the direction of trying this this out if you were intimidated by color grading or using a picture profile beforehand. Personally, I have used the Cine profile in a number of commercial projects and all clients have been absolutely delighted, and it was a blessing because it took me less time in a massively busy period of time that I had with my business, which I guess is another practical perk to trying this out, right? So if you do end up trying this out, I would totally love to hear how your experience was, if it broke down the intimidation factor, if it gave you a better finished product, and if it ultimately led to you maybe dabbling in a little bit of that S-Log vibe. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more practical camera tips and watch this video right here that YouTube thinks you might like. See you next time.